The thing that's changing the most by far is SEO, right? Because AI has just completely changed the game for how people get information. And even about 18 months ago, Google's own CEO said that they were really worried at the time that 40% of young people under 25, were not even going to Google to search for things first. They were going to Instagram or TikTok. And now we have all these people going to AI tools first to search for things or to get answers. And so SEO is probably the thing that's the Wild West the most, more than anything else.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Connected Advisor. I'm your host, Kyle Van Pelt, co-founder and CEO of Milemarker. And today we have a special treat. I am joined by Samantha Russell. She probably doesn't need any introduction, but I'm going to try my best. Samantha Russell is the chief evangelist at FMG Suite. And maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but she also used to ask rich people for money at Penn State University, which we're going to talk a little bit more about. She is a tremendous marketing influencer in our space, incredible ideas to help advisors grow their practices, to help wealth tech companies grow their practices, and an incredible keynote speaker at conferences and things along those lines. So I'm excited for the conversation today. Samantha, thank you so much for joining the Connected Advisor.
Thanks for having me. I feel like I'm just meeting up with a friend for coffee, Kyle. We're going to get this selfishly. I get to connect with you, hear more about you and talk about life. And that's always fun in my book.
Yeah. And that's exactly how I like to try and run these things is, just grab a cup of coffee. Let's talk a little bit about your life, about the industry, things like that. And actually, there's a question I've always wanted to ask you. Samantha, Sam, does it matter? Do you care? Do you have a preference?
No, I always introduce myself as Samantha, but everyone calls me Sam. So I must just deep down inside be a Sam.
Do you like deep down inside, do you have one that you like? Like, do you wish everybody called you Samantha, but people just shorten it to Sam and you're like, what the heck, everybody? I introduced myself as Samantha.
I have two names. It's great. Two different, depending on the mood you're in. You can be formal or informal. Yeah, no, Sam is fine.
Okay, perfect. All right. So Samantha, I ask every guest on this podcast the same first question as we dive into their conversation, and this isn't going to be any different. What I've found is that everybody, through hundreds of these conversations, everybody has a unique path to this space. Some people may be really traditional, like maybe they followed family footsteps or went to school for this or whatever you call it. Some people came in through the side door. They just sort of stumbled into this industry doing whatever it is. But what I've found is that whether your path is traditional or untraditional, everybody has what we call a money moment in their life. It was a moment in your life where something sort of clicked and a light bulb went off and you said, oh, this is where I want to actually devote time in my career is, in this little niche of the world, the wealth management space, which is a big part of financial services, but not the most broad. So for you, what was your money moment that led you to this world?
Yeah. So mine, I'm a little different because my whole career has been devoted to helping advisors with their marketing, not clients with their money. But as you said, I came from development fundraising world at Penn State, where I would travel with Graham Spanier, the president of Penn State at the time, and go ask the wealthiest alumni for money to support the university. And I was doing that for a little while. And then my late husband, Ryan Russell, he had the aha moment to start a business, which was called 20 over 10, which helped financial advisors with specifically websites at first. And then it brought into more marketing. And he said, you've been out there working with a lot of people. A lot of the people we were asking for money were executives, were in finance. And he said, there's the marketing that they have available to them, because this was like 2013, is so limited. Will you come and be our CMO and help me launch this company? And I thought about it and was like, you know what? It's so true. Like, these companies that are some of the wealthiest companies in the world have the worst marketing, and it is so boring and so stale. And if I can help them make it better, I would love to do that. And so that's how I got into the business.
Super cool. So when you're traveling around trying to raise money for Penn State, were a lot of those introductions and stuff coming by way of financial advisors, or was that a channel that you would meet some of the alumni or donors, or was that still directly through the university? Like, how did those conversations happen?
Yeah, so the university had a directory of all the alums and where they worked. And then we had software that would kind of look up, people's net worth and how they were doing. And then we would look at how philanthropic they were, or if they'd made previous donations to the university. And then you sort of prioritize from there who you want to reach out to. You can also see, like, let's say somebody is very philanthropic. We know that they have known wealth, but they've not made many big gifts to the university, but they're giving a lot to a children's hospital in their local town. Well, we could say, well, Penn State has a huge medical program. Maybe you didn't know about it. And we're on the cutting edge of children's pediatric cancer research. And then you reach out to them and ask if they'd like to support that. So it was a lot of that kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's super cool. And then, but that's more of like a direct sales sort of situation. So, and then you go 20 over 10, you're kind of leading marketing, which I know you kind of did marketing and sales, but then all of a sudden you become this marketing expert. What was the transition for you from the direct sales stuff, which is finding out what somebody cares about, having that direct conversation, moving them into a decision, to kind of this broader, hey, I want to have branding and messaging that gets people to want to have that conversation that I was trying to have before? Like, where did that switch flip, or how did you go down that path?
Well, it's such a good question. So with Penn State, they have a world-known brand. They have one of the largest alumni bases in the world. And so when you picked up the phone to call somebody and told them we have this really exciting new thing, they're already all in on wanting to hear it because of that brand. With 20 over 10, I knew our technology was amazing. I knew our product was amazing. But if I picked up the phone to call someone, it's crickets, because they're like, who the heck is 20 over 10? So I realized very quickly that we had to take a step back and do a lot to prove ourselves through our branding. And one of the biggest ways any firm, anyone out there listening, that you can become a trusted source where someone will take the phone call or take the sales meeting in the first place is to give something of value away first before you ask. I always say give, then ask, right? And so I realized very quickly we needed to have a solid brand that was known for giving away great marketing information, because that's what we were going to help advisors with, was their marketing and their design and their, client conversions. So I had no budget, and I said, as I'm learning things, I'm going to teach while I learn. And I feel like that's one of the quickest ways to become an expert in something, is force yourself to not only learn it, but learn it well enough to teach it to someone else. And so, I'd spend all day researching, let's say, tricks for writing email subject lines. And then I'd write a blog post and make a video about it to teach everybody else what I just spent time learning and implementing. And then let's say I did some A/B testing on those email subject lines in our own emails over the next 30 days. Then I wrote a follow-up blog post about how it went and what actually worked. So it was very much like building in public and in real time. And if I got on the phone with a financial advisor, I'd say, look, whether you use our service or not, here's 3 things you should change right now in your marketing. And people really, really took to that, right? Because I'm not saying these 3 things can only be done if you become a customer of ours. I'm saying whether you work with us or not, do these 3 things. And so that trust developed much, much quicker. And that's how it all started.
That's super cool. I love it. So learning as you go, teaching as you're learning, I think that is such a cool path. And then over time, you develop all of this stuff, you see what's working. I've followed some of your content and everything, but it seems to me like the stuff that worked back then still seems to work pretty well today, right? Or is it like, hey, the tactics are changing every single year, like you've got to really be on all of these new tactics and keeping up to date with everything new and fresh that's going on? Or is it really still the tried and true methods to get people to care?
I think at the foundation is definitely, it's still the same, right? So give away valuable information. Then there's all these little tiny tweaks that happen that change the way the tactics. If you kind of think of like, millennia ago, where when we had cavemen, like they were cooking food and they were eating it, right? The foundation is the same of what we do now, but now we don't need an open fire. We have a gas stove or electric stove. We have all these tricks and tools at our disposal. It's kind of the same thing with marketing, right? So we're still creating video, but now the videos, either need to be super short for YouTube Shorts and Instagram and LinkedIn, or, wherever you're going to post it, with really quick takeaways, or they need to be super long and in depth, really long ones to please the YouTube algorithm in other ways. So I think a lot of the tactics are the same. It's just kind of how we implement might change. The biggest one, though, if anybody really interested kind of like where things are headed, the thing that's changing the most by far is SEO, right? Because AI has just completely changed the game for how people get information. And even about 18 months ago, at a TechCrunch conference, Google's own CEO said that they were really worried at the time that 40% of young people, people under 25, were not even going to Google to search for things first. They were going to Instagram or TikTok. And now we have all these people going to AI tools first to search for things or to get answers. And so SEO is probably the thing that's the Wild West the most, more than anything else.
Do you think that's going to be pretty disruptive to advisors? Do you think a lot of them are leveraging SEO today? Or do you think that it's going to kind of be like, okay, I wasn't really doing much with that as is anyway, Sam. So like, cool.
I'd say it might be disruptive for like 1% to 2% of all advisors who had figured out how to really capitalize on it. But by and large, most people never really got there to begin with. And, things like local search, financial advisor near me, you can still perform really well there if you have good Google reviews. So if you get Google reviews or, other kinds of reviews where Google's like, okay, this is a known business. Look at all these people saying it's good. So that still really works well. But if you're looking for more of those like long tail keywords that maybe drove traffic before, that's going to be a lot more difficult.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. All right. If you would indulge me, I'd love to kind of put you on the spot a little bit with a couple of different things. So the thing I'd love to put you on the spot on is I think advisors are an incredibly noble profession, but I also think from a marketing perspective, it's really hard for them to differentiate, right? Everybody is doing holistic planning, fiduciary fee only advice, maybe if they're sophisticated, they're targeting a niche or something like that. So let's just say that January 2025, you and I go start a new RIA together. What are you doing in starting a new RIA to help the messaging and the branding stand out so that we are getting more conversations from the prospective clients that we want to reach?
So, one of the things I like to tell people, if you really are brand new and maybe it's a one-person shop, two people come together, are you saying in this scenario, like we have no clients or maybe we're just bringing a few over?
Yeah, maybe just a couple. Let's say we've got a little bit of a base here and stuff, but I mean, we're still new. Nobody knows our brand. And here we are. We're financial advisors. We do great work, but we got to cut through the noise to make sure that they call us and have the conversation with us.
Yeah. So I really suggest in those early years, doing the things you can do that are not scalable, actually, because yes, you want to build a machine that, on the back end in your tech, but in terms of like with marketing, this is your opportunity to do things that you're not going to be able to do when you grow really big later, but that can have a massive impact short term. So let me give you an example. There's an advisor I know, Thomas Cook, and he's in this exact scenario, and he's based in Tennessee and Tellico, Tennessee, actually. The name sticks with me. And he realized that a lot of the clients that he had, the few clients, they were all really into pickleball. And he also loved pickleball. And so he's got a great logo that he developed, which you need to do, and a great website, which you need to do. You need to build those foundational brand assets. But then he thought, okay, how can I tap into this as a way to really grow exponentially and a lot quicker rather than like waiting for it all to kind of happen? So he decided he would bring in a pickleball pro that people would be excited to play with. And his brand, his company would host a tournament and invite all of his clients and then tell them to invite any of their friends, all these people who are pre-retirees and retirees in this area. And Tellico's a big retirement community in that area to come into this tournament. And it was free for them to attend because he sponsored it. So he had his logo and his branding up. And then he took it one step further. He went into Facebook groups that retirees in this area would belong to. And when people were saying things like, we're thinking about moving to Tellico, do you know a good realtor or something? He'd say, hey, I don't know if you're going to be in town on August 10th, but we're hosting this great pickleball tournament. It'd be great for you to come. There's going to be a ton of other retirees there. You can meet new friends. It was not salesy at all, but his brand was everywhere. And then everyone who signed up afterwards, they sent pictures from the event. And at the bottom, it said sponsored by. And by the way, if you're moving to this area or if you're a retiree here, you might not realize some of the things you need to think about from a financial standpoint if you're changing states or if you're retiring in the next 5 years. Here's a link if you want to chat with our team. I have to remember the numbers right, but it was more than 5 new meetings booked just from that, one event, which was not that expensive. So that's just an example of the kinds of things though that you can do is like thinking about what do the people we serve have a passion about? What is a problem that they're trying to solve? So for instance, they're coming here to retire. They're going to need to make new friends. and figure out, how to navigate this local community. And then how can you help facilitate that? Because you're doing retirement planning, the finances is just one small little part of the overall larger need that those pre-retirees have.
That's such a great example. And this is why we asked you to come on the podcast, because you're going to bring these concrete case studies, even when I put you on the spot. So to go one step further, okay, that's an amazing example if we're just starting out. Let's flip the script. We're a firm that's actually had quite a bit of success. We're adding AUM, we've got clients, but it's all been through referrals, through word of mouth. And we really want to turn on like more of a true marketing engine, right? So people know our brand, oh yeah, my friends use you, or that type of stuff. That has kind of been working. But here at Milemarker, we say firms get to this place where you either want to sell your firm or you want to scale your firm, right? And they've made the decision that they don't want to sell, they want to scale, and they want to start being attractive to other advisors, but also clients and things like that. So, all right, Samantha, we're bringing you in. Referrals are great. Clients are happy. We've got the offering. It's awesome. How do I actually start turning this into the machine now? We've done the things that don't scale. How do I start doing the things that scale? Where do we start?
Yes. So the first thing that I would look at is, again, it depends who you're targeting, but a lot of people are targeting people that are, let's say, 55 and older. Email is still really, really productive for that group, and Facebook is as well. So I'd probably pick those two platforms and maybe throw in some YouTube in there to go all in with that audience. I find if I ask a room full of advisors, how many of you have separated your contacts into, just at a bare minimum, clients and prospects? Barely anyone raises their hand. It's so sad. And so if you're getting all these referrals, maybe a really high percentage of them convert, but not everybody. So you first need to separate in your email list people into groups that you can then target with content, right? So let's say you get, just to make numbers nice and round, 100 referrals a year and 70 of them are converting. Well, that's 30 that aren't. You could be adding those 30 names into your prospect list and then dripping on them with good, relevant content, honestly, even weekly. There's a story of an advisor I know. She specifically works with small business owners, and she had this email list. We had her divided into clients and prospects, and she's a customer of FMG's, and we often give her content. We give all of our advisors different kinds of content, but small business content is a big one that people want. And so every time we would drop a new piece, she would send it to that small business list. And somebody had been on her list, Kyle, for 5 years, never messaged her back, never emailed her, never booked a meeting. And just the other day, she called me and she was so excited. This small business owner called her. They're going to be almost $1 million client. And they were like, I've been reading your emails for 5 years. You're sending me so many valuable things. I loved when the PPP loans came out, that you helped me navigate that with great information. And I'm selling my business and I'm ready to work with you, right? So that content really was the engine that kept people engaged and thinking of her in the long run, right? So dividing your list into at least clients and prospects, subdividing the prospects if you can into even smaller pieces, and then having good content to drip on these people. And so you would do that with the prospects, but then even going back to the client list, I see so many firms that are talking about the great wealth transfer, but they're not doing anything to engage the family members of the clients they have. We did a great piece on a family meeting this summer that advisors could send, where it said, we know where all the ducks are in a row when it comes to your estate and your legacy, but do your children, do your grandchildren? We'd love to offer you the opportunity to come in, have a family meeting. We'll facilitate it, and we'll help make sure everyone's on the same page with where everything is. And advisors saw a great adoption rate of that, where these introductions were happening, and now the kids are meeting the parents, advisor. So kind of tapping into, I guess, streamlining what you already have, right, is where I would go with that. And those are just a couple examples for that audience. And one last thing is, if you are going to start making content, but you have multiple members of your team, picking 1 or 2 or 3 people to be sort of the face, if you will, of the company, because you're going to get a lot more engagement on social media, YouTube, if you have posts going out on Samantha Russell's page versus FMG's. We're always going to want to engage with the human being versus the brand.
Yeah. All right. That's awesome. And I think one thing I'm taking away from that is, I think sometimes we all overthink this, or we almost make it too complex. Like, You could probably obviously get more complex, but I love that you're just like, hey, if it's already working, I'm sure you already have emails of people, like just email them quality content. It's right there in front of you. And I think, there is great firms like FMG who can provide content if you're worried about providing the content. And there's something I want to come back to on that. But you said something there about segmenting clients, about knowing who you would want to send certain types of content to or whatever. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. Milemarker is a company that helps people with data and business reporting. How do you think firms should be thinking about tools like CRM, marketing automation, all of these things, like to make sure the data is talking to each other, all of that sort of fun stuff? Like, it's not as simple as just saying, hey, get your clients all segmented out and everything. I mean, what are you seeing from a tooling perspective for people to be successful on this type of stuff?
Yeah. So, I mean, in my marketing lens, I really think you have to start with a CRM that you're actually going to use. For instance, I do see a lot of advisors who are smaller in this kind of scenario, and they start maybe with like Salesforce, and they cannot figure out how to use it. And so then they don't even use it, right? In those cases, like the tool is not helping you, it's hindering you. So you need to use a tool that you're actually going to use. And, a lot of people use Wealthbox, Redtail. There's a lot of tools specific for our industry. And that becomes, your source of truth. So you're not then going into your email service provider and changing things. You're plugging it in. You need to make sure that your email service provider plays nice with whatever CRM that you choose. But I think simple is better for most firms. I think you're not, Crate and Barrel or Best Buy or Target. Let's say you get to the point where you have 2,000 contacts, and that might seem like a lot for you, but in the grand scheme of what these tools can do, that's not that many. So I would say stay simple and make it so that you'll actually use it versus try to overcomplicate it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. All right. So going back to my other follow-up on what you were saying before, I think with content, it makes sense. Like if you're consistent and you share, like you said, 5 years, right, for that prospect to show up. I think a lot of people just don't have the patience for some of this marketing and branding stuff to work, right? So I'm sure you are in conversations every day. And for the people listening to this, they're like, yeah, but Samantha, like I want results now, I want these, I don't want the crock pot, right? I want the microwave. So yeah, sure. Like we'll do the crock pot stuff, but I don't have time to wait 5 years for somebody to show up as a prospect. So I don't know, like, how do you navigate that? Is it like, hey, there's tactics for the microwave, but they're expensive? Or is it just like, look, marketing takes time. And, the best time to start marketing was 5 years ago. The second best time is today, right? I mean, how do you navigate those conversations with people?
Yes, I think your analogy, you need to have both the crock pot plugged in and going and the microwave, because you have cash flow needs and capital needs that you need now. I totally get that. But, I would say on average, to start seeing some results from really consistent marketing is usually about 6 months when the first conversions start. So yes, there's some people that are going to take 5 years. And the point of my story was to say, don't give up on people in those situations. But you will start seeing results within the first 6 months. And there's certain things you can do to make it easier. So for instance, I have people who will say, I'm posting all the time, but nobody's engaging with my stuff. Well, then I go and I look at how many followers they have, and it's like 200. You don't have a big enough network, right? So you can do things. For instance, like if you go and Google your firm or your name even, LinkedIn will be one of the top results on that page that will come up because of the way that their algorithm works. But a lot of people take no time to optimize their LinkedIn page, to really put some of their best content there, to highlight who they help, how they help, maybe to include a video. And something as simple as every Friday at the end of the week, go through everyone that was on your calendar that you met with and every single person you emailed with and send them a connection request. By the end of the year, you could have 3,000 connections just from doing that. And now when you post something, those 3,000 people are going to be seeing your content versus the 200 you had before. So you can systemize really simple things like that will help get a lot more eyeballs and make the growth happen a lot more intentionally. And this is also where tapping into COIs works really well. We have a whole email drip campaign that we've written where you can send that great content that's helpful to an estate planning attorney, to a CPA, to, maybe a mortgage company in your town. And it's not asking them to give you referrals. It's telling them something helpful that's happening about the economy, legislation, and saying, just as a heads up, this is something we're helping our clients with. You might run into these conversations, right? And so again, just going back to it, I know it sounds so simple, but giving away great information in an intentional way.
Yeah, I love it.
This podcast is brought to you by Turncast. We make game-changing content for fintech and financial services companies. Learn more at turncast.com.
So I'm a big fan of pattern interrupts, right? So now, I mean, there's so much stuff. People are trying to do LinkedIn stuff. They're doing email, whatever. And it feels like maybe in person, which used to be a massive channel for financial advisors, has kind of gone down since COVID because everybody's trying to do like Zoom seminars or they're doing all this type of stuff. Like, do you think that there is still power in the steak dinner or in the seminar for people and trying to combine that with all the digital efforts to stand out? I mean, I love the pickleball tournament as an example. Like, that's not a digital thing, but they use digital to drive it. But that was an in-person kind of unique thing that could be viewed as almost like a seminar style, type thing. But do you think there's still power in the steak dinner or the seminar?
I don't think there's as much power in just, hey, come get a free meal. I do think there's a lot of power in, hey, come to this event that's going to add value to your life in some way. So the pickleball event was come make new friends, playing a sport that you like. And, whether they even knew the pickleball pro or not, I think that the incentive there was really get out there and meet other retirees in our town because you're a retiree and you want to meet people. Some examples of events we've seen work really well. There's an advisor that works with a lot of families, generational wealth. And they hosted at their office in the back of the office. They set up like a really beautiful backdrop and they hired a local photographer and they invited families to come and get their family photos done in September so that they would be ready to put on Christmas cards for the holidays. And they had such a high turnout. And, again, one of the goals was meeting the younger generations of these families.
Yeah.
That is something everybody wants, pictures. You got to do them every year. Everybody wants to send out those pictures. And what a value add to say, we don't have to think about it. The photographer's booked, we just show up. They're going to have everything taken care of. We don't even need to coordinate it. We just choose our time slot. That's an event that can work really, really well. Or there was another event where this group targets people that sandwich generation. They've got young kids, but now they've got parents they're helping take care of. And they held a digital event all about scams targeting people 65 and older. How are they getting their credit cards? What kinds of phone calls are they getting? And they had somebody from the local FBI office come in and talk. And the signups were crazy high. And they told people, they sent out the first invite and then they sent out a second one. And the way they worded it was so smart. They said, we're getting a lot of interest in this event. So we're going to allow every one of our clients to ask 2 other friends or family to join. You can send them this link. And instead of saying, hey, do you know anybody who'd be a good fit for our business as a referral, they're giving something of value away. And they got so many people inviting friends and family because it's not just, do you want to work with my advisor? It's, hey, come to this event that's going to really help you in some way. So yes, events work, but nobody's really going to probably show up for a steak to hear you talk for an hour.
All right. I love it. Okay. So now I want to move to a segment of the show that we do with everybody, where I'm going to ask you to get out your crystal ball. There's a lot happening, AI, all host of different things, but for you, as you look into the future of the industry and you see what's going on with advisors or where things are going, like, what's your predictions for what's going to happen for the future of the industry when you look into that crystal ball?
Good question. I think you mentioned AI, it's crazy. Just this morning, I saw somebody post something, a friend of mine, Ruben Miller from Peltoma Capital. He had written an article and then an AI tool took it and it turned it into a podcast with these 2 bot voices, but it literally sounded like a real like I was blown away by how real it sounded. And so I think, content is just going to become even crazier and crazier. The tools that we can use to service clients are going to become so hyper productive. And we are going to go back to really thinking about experiences because so many other things are going to become commodities that the experiences are going to become crucial. And they already have in a lot of ways. I think the advisors that really think about a client's wealth and financial wealth is just being one part of their overall wealth, right? The origin of the word wealth actually comes from Middle English wheel or well, W-E-L-E, and it meant well-being. And I think the firms that focus on the full well-being of a client, so they're thinking about what are their hobbies going to be in retirement? What does their healthcare plan look like? What is the legacy they're leaving behind? And they're combining estate planning and tax planning and mental health and physical health. All of those services in one place is where the future is going to be. And it's going to be because the money is just going to be the thing that underpins all those other things. I really do see that being the direction that the most successful firms will go.
That's awesome. Along those lines, I think you kind of have this unique seat. So I get to have these conversations with advisors all the time. And I think it's interesting that so many people just save and save and save and save, and they work really hard to try and get to this place. But then you hear these horror stories of like, the day they retire, somebody gets sick or, whatever it is and that type of stuff. You just got to have this opportunity to go to Europe for, a couple of weeks and all of that type of stuff. Like, talk to me a little bit about not waiting for the future, some future date to live your life, to experience a lot of the things that you want to do, to take some of your money and kind of live it now while still being smart about, what you're doing in the future.
Well, and it's such a good, from a marketing standpoint too, I always tell people when you're just talking about a future state that depending on your client base is, 5, 10, 15, 20 years away, we are not good at thinking about our future selves. If we were, we'd all be in the best shape of our lives. No one would have debt, right? Like we wouldn't do that. And so when you're just talking about, we're going to help you get to your goals, and these goals are 20 years from now, that is not a pain point you're solving for today. So the best advisors are talking about what are the pain points that come up year after year. People want to travel. They want to live their lives today. They want to have more time with their kids. They want to not deal with a big tax bill every single year. So the more you can incorporate the solutions for pain points today, the more successful you'll be with your marketing. But to your point, I have a very personal story about this. My father, he just turned 70 this summer. When he was 67, he retired. And I'm not kidding you, just 2 months after he retired, he had a stroke and ended up in the hospital. Thankfully, it's like a minor stroke, basically. And he recovered really, really well. Interestingly enough, he was like a lifelong smoker, like 2 packs a day. And the stroke hit the part of his brain that dealt with that kind of thing. And he never wanted a cigarette again. So it was like incredibly crazy. But, that was really such a trigger for all of us as a family to say, what are we waiting for with so many things? And to your point now, like this summer, we went to Europe. I have 3 little kids. My dad is 70. We hiked in the Swiss Alps and I carried my 2-year-old through the Swiss Alps. My dad with his poor bad knee, like took the gondolas up, would meet us, walk around, but we did it. And, I think there was always this mindset in my family, especially growing up, we were a working class family. Like you just keep putting money away. You do not spend it. And him having that stroke just a couple months after retirement, you realize that there is a balance. You can always make more money. You can't make more time.
Mm.
You can't. So of course you don't want to spend it all, but I think an advisor's role in helping clients with that is crucial.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. What a powerful personal story to give you the encouragement to go do it. Because I think a lot of people resonate with that. My parents, I'm watching them, they successfully retired, they did all that stuff. Like my dad won't spend money. And I'm like, Dad, what are you waiting for, man? Like what's the holdup kind of thing? And I think it's just trained behavior it's almost like you're expecting the other shoe to drop or something along those lines. But it's like, you won, you did it, you're good. All of that type of stuff. So
yeah, it's totally like we went for years and years of like, gotta save to get to this place to now, okay, you should be spending some of it. You dying with all of it in the bank is not going to be helpful to you. So yeah, it's definitely a mindset shift for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about the European trip. So you went to a bunch of different places. Like, Where'd you go? What was your favorite?
We did Switzerland and Italy and Germany and France. And I would say by far, everyone's favorite place was the Bernese Oberland part of Switzerland. So Wengen and Mürren and Grindelwald. And it looks like you're in a painting the whole time you're there. It is so incredibly beautiful. And we lucked out with the most gorgeous, like blue sky weather every day. And we did hikes. We did like a canyon, like underwater waterfall adventure. My children at the time were 2, 6, and 8. And I would never change a thing about going. So many people have said like, oh, would you wait to go later? I'm like, no, we'll just go again. It was so fun. And we also loved Tremezzo, which was a part of Italy on Lake Como. That's like kind of a under the radar area that not a lot of people know about. And that was just stunningly beautiful. And, what we did was rather than change cities every couple of days, because we have little kids with us, we would go somewhere and stay for like 4 or 5 nights and really just be there. And one of the things I think we'll always remember is the Euro games were on. So those are only every 4 years when all of Europe's, all of the players from Italy go back and play for Italy, no matter what team they're on now. And, English teams are there, whatever. And so we got to cheer on the Italia team in a bar in Italy with my kids and all these people with horns. And then in Switzerland, we were in a big public square cheering Switzerland on. So it was so fun to just sort of immerse ourselves with the locals and be a part of that. And if you haven't done a European trip with your kids, I can't highly recommend it, even more.
That's awesome. I love it. All right. Well, that is a good trigger to move into the final segment of the show, which is what we call the Milemarker Minute. It's kind of a series of lightning round questions, a little bit more lighthearted to ask different things of you. So you ready for the Milemarker Minute?
I will. And I'll keep my answers short. I'm ready.
I love it. So we just talked about travel. A question I love to ask people all the time is, where in the world would you love to travel that you've never traveled before?
Oh, I want to go to Poland. I'm Polish by ethnicity, and I would love to go there.
Okay. Awesome. All right. What is the best book that you've read or listened to in the last year?
A book I go back to and read over and over again is How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And I say everyone in the world should read this book because it's not just about communicating with kids, but anyone that you want to tell you things and open up and be more vulnerable. It is amazing. I love that book.
All right. I just Googled that because I'd never heard that one before. So thank you for teaching me something new. Appreciate that. I'm going to go check that one out. All right. If you were to have basically an alternate universe, different career in an alternate universe, you're not doing marketing for financial advisors or doing that type of thing. What is Samantha Russell doing in this alternate universe as a career?
Oh, I would love to be a travel influencer with my kids, just travel all around the world and document it. And actually, we started an Instagram account called the Jolly Good Traveler, where we did document some of our trips, but I was too busy doing marketing for other things. I didn't market it well. So I need to get it going, but that would be a dream job.
That's awesome. All right. You kind of just did this, so this is really fresh for you, but mountains or beach? What do you prefer?
Mountains.
Mountains. I love it. All right. And then what is the most impactful marketing tip you have for a financial advisor listening to this podcast?
I would say stop asking the question, which marketing tactic is going to work best or, should we try? And instead ask, what about our firm is the most marketable? What makes us the most marketable? And lean into that.
That's so good. Yeah. And I think the big takeaway that I had from you, I think way too many of us, and I'm even susceptible to this, are so caught up in all of the cool things about our business, about our financial advisory firm, about FMG, about Milemarker, that we just want to tell people about how cool we are. And we think that's what marketing is. But the most successful stuff was running a pickleball tournament, which had nothing to do with financial advice, but it was what the people who you want to talk to about financial advice care about. The bringing in the local FBI person to talk about financial scams or those types of things has nothing to do with asset allocation or tax locations or any of that type of stuff, right? It was just, like you said, what is it that our business wants people to know about and care about, and how do we tell them that and almost sort of bring it back in? I think that's incredibly powerful and a great reminder for all of us. So
yeah, if you
that.
Go like on Instagram or TikTok right now, one of the trends that's so popular is an account will say, the first person in your share list is the person that you should go to Paris with this year. Or, the person that you're reading this and the first person you share it to is the person that you should go on a date with, or whatever it is. And different accounts will try this, but it has nothing to do with the business. It's about them tapping into a desire that you have or something you're thinking about or wanting to do. And the reason that works is because nobody cares what you can do. Honestly, at the end of the day, nobody cares what Milemarker can do, what F&G can do, what financial planning firm X can do. They care what you can do for them. Like when you look at your website, don't say, we've been in business for 35 years. It should say, do you have this problem? We help solve it through X, Y, and Z, right? And so all of that we and I language needs to be flipped and turned to you. And the more you can think about that, what can we do for them and tap into those problems and then provide solutions to those problems, the better off you will be.
Can't think of a better place to end. This was a jam-packed episode and conversation with all kinds of great insights. Thanks for being a great sport as I just put you on the spot with a bunch of stuff and I put you to the ringer, but I knew you would be up to the test because you actually know what you're talking about. You're not just somebody who fakes it out there. And so I had a lot of fun with this conversation and I appreciate you carving out some time to do it.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. All right, everybody, that has been another episode of The Connected Advisor. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Please make sure you click follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to this so that you can be notified the next time we have a great conversation like the one with Samantha today. And if you would be so kind, please leave a review wherever you're listening to this because it helps more people get to hear conversations like this one. And we want to get it into as many people's hands as possible. But until the next great conversation, enjoy every mile.